I wanted to share my top 5 watercolor secrets. Most of them I use every single day, and they just make creating a lot easier. Let's have some fun. Are you ready? My number 1 tip is tracing paper. I use it several different ways, and the first thing we're going to do is make handmade graphite paper. I'm sure you've all bought graphite transfer paper or some kind of transfer paper. There's a bunch of different brands, a bunch of different kinds. Some come on tubes, some come individually like this. But the bad thing is you can never truly erase it. And for me, that's an issue because I want my lines gone sometimes. So let me show you my biggest watercolor secret. We're gonna make our own graphite paper. That's right, and it comes off all the way. I'm using a piece of tracing paper. I like to fold mine in half because I don't like the graphite getting all over in my drawer. So I'm going to put graphite on one half and leave one half totally empty. You'll see. I am using a graphite stick. Now this is XL charcoal, but they also sell XL graphite, and I'm using the graphite version. I've just given away the tin, but I wanted you to see that they're all little blocks like this of different colors. And instead of the charcoal, again, I'm using the Derwent XL graphite. And I have the black and just a little plastic sleeve. But if you do not have this big chunk, you can use a regular pencil, and I would suggest a dark lead. By that I mean most pencils have the lead here, so like it'll say 2B or 2H or something like that, or just BHB. I like to use the 4B or the 6B for my graphite paper. So you can easily just do this. You do not need the block, but the block makes it easier for me to show you. Trust me on this. Put a piece of paper under that so you can see that. So for the block, you just want a nice even coat. And you can see it's very dusty, which is another reason I've got the paper underneath it. Okay. What I'm going to do now is take a piece of paper towel, and you want like an old piece. And what we're going to do is kind of smear this out and get rid of a lot of the dust. So I just use small circles, and you can see what it does. You can use acetone, you can use other stuff to get rid of it. I just don't want to use other chemicals, and this does it for me. Okay, so you can see I've picked up a lot of it here. And what I'm going to do is carry this to the trash can and dump all the excess, because I don't know if you can see this. See all the little bitty pieces in there? I need to get rid of those. I like mine a little darker, so I'm going to do another layer over it. I'm usually dealing with little small drawings, so I know that I need a little heavier application. That looks really good. Okay, gonna dump it again. See how much more grit and dirt is there? And I fold this in and give it one more little layer just to pick up any kind of crumbs or the loose graphite. You can see, picks it up. Put my graphite back in its plastic tube, and I can reuse it again. So now what I have is handmade graphite here. I'm going to push this aside, and then I'm going to show you the next step. Some of you asked how I transferred this. So I took this, it's just out of my computer on printer paper, but what I did was lay a piece of tracing paper over it, and I took a pencil and I just traced around every letter. until I got it to where I wanted. You can see that I moved my letters closer so that they didn't take up as much room as my printer had. Now what you do with this piece, you'll position this where you want it. So in my sketchbook here, I would place it where I want it. I would use a T-square on the edge to make sure that it's nice and straight. Play around with it until you're happy. And then I would usually just hold it in place because it's not that big. But if you are going to tape it, make sure that you use kind of like a low tack tape. I really like yellow frog tape. It's called frog tape and it's for delicate surface. I find that the delicate surface tape, and you can see that it's bright yellow like this, it usually does not peel off watercolor paper. If it's really inexpensive mixed media paper, you want to be a little careful with it, but I have a hack for that as well. So if you are using tape and it feels kind of stickier, if you just put it on your clothing and do this a couple times, what it does is it lifts the lint from your shirt or your pants or whatever, and it makes this less tacky. So you could always just then tape this down, and I'm going to show you on this other piece of paper how I did that. So I'm going to tape this word Florida down here. I just need one little piece. I usually don't tape in big sections. And then what I'm going to do with my handmade graphite paper, so you can see this is the side that we just worked on. You want to flip it over so the graphite is on the bottom. So I'm going to put my graphite side to the bottom. You want to make sure that all of it is covered with graphite, and then you're going to trace. So you're just going to go over your letters. Take your time, and I hold it here. You need to check it before you go too far, because sometimes you think you turned a paper over and you haven't. So I like to just double check, and you can see it's there. See the little F? So let me do one more letter here. And always before I lift, I double check. So I will pull the graphite paper out from behind, and I will lift this and make sure that I can see all of whatever I wanted traced down here. If you didn't, before you remove this, put your graphite paper back. But I want to show you how well it transferred. Look at that. So now the beauty of this is it can totally be erased. Bring it closer, and I want you to see how easy this is to be erased. Look, all the way gone. So had we used other graphite paper, I've got a sheet here. You can see how much darker it is, but watch. So I can totally get this F off of here now. All gone. This one is the store-bought one. No matter how hard I press with that, it does not come off. Now, a lot of times when I'm showing you in my book, I will say I need to lightly erase those lines. So all I do is just kind of tap it, and it will take a lot of the graphite off. And again, this is the handmade graphite, not this graphite. And you can see the difference here. So there's no F where this F was, but then I've lightened here, and that's the old graphite. So this is my favorite secret of all time. Once you make your own handmade graphite, you can reuse this. So when it starts to not show up anymore, you just use the same paper, you rub your graphite over it again, do the paper toweling again, and it's magic. You can reuse it for as much as you want. And this lasts me a long time. I mean, I paint every single day, and I am just to the point now that I need to re-graphite mine, which is why I made this video so that I would have a new sheet here. And it's been probably about a year that I used one piece of graphite paper, the handmade graphite. It lasts a long time, but it is so worth it knowing that you can erase every single line. My second use for tracing paper, creating drawings on tracing paper to see how they fit in your journals. So I'm going to show you a specific thing here. So when I'm working in my concertina book, it helps to have a plan of what's next so that it continues the flow. And you don't want to put something randomly in there and then be like, oh, I'm really not happy with it. I like to use tracing paper to fit things in and see if it works the way that I'm thinking. So for the next element here, I've got a couple drawn on tracing paper already. So I have like this little word field notes and a little paper crane with a ball. So I want to see, like, does the ball and the crane there, does that look nice next to it? Not sure. Do I like the field notes and the little rose hips? Not really. Do I want the rose hips up here next to the beehive? That's not bad. I kind of like that. How about leaves? Do I want a big thing of leaves here? And this is the beauty about tracing paper too, is you've drawn it once, but you've got all these sides now. I can flip it this way. Like, do I like it heavier on one side next to the beehive? Do I want it angled upside down? Let's place it this way. So now you've got 4 ways that you can view this because you've done it on tracing paper. Do I want to put a shell and a bird here? Maybe up higher. Kind of like that, where it's kind of connected. So this is the beauty of tracing paper, is it's like you're trying out things before actually drawing them. And then what I do, once I figure out where I want it, I will tape this down lightly and then again slip the handmade graphite paper behind it and trace it out. And because you've already drawn these out, they're great to keep because they're your ideas. And I just use a clear sleeve, like a protective sleeve. You can buy these everywhere. And you can just store them in there. If they're small, you can have a smaller sleeve for small pieces, but it's really nice. And I fold them all the time just to get them in. You can use a manila folder, you can use whatever you have, but this way, if you are thinking about, what do I want to put there? It's great to pull some things out so that you can try the size or the shape or the, the little figure. Do I want a figure? Do I want an article of nature? But this way you already have things that you've drawn instead of redrawing them. I love the idea of trying something out before actually committing to it. So that's tracing paper used in the second way. Secret number 3 is tracing. I trace the majority of my work. I know, you've seen me just lay a leaf down, right, and go right around it. But you can do it with everyday items too. So let's just say this is our sketch paper. You can just use a regular pencil. I like a mechanical pencil. Now, this has a rim, so a circle template is one of my favorite tools. And I think every artist should have this. It just makes it easier. And then if you wanted to do the number, you pull out your tracing paper. Trace the element that you want, and then you can position it wherever you want on the drawing, which is what I really love, is it's transparent so you can see where you want it. And then you use your graphite to transfer it. Again, the graphite side goes face down. Double checking. Yes, and there it is. So now I have that easily drawn. And now I have a pattern for a number 13 if I want. You can trace everything. So this is a little charm that I have. So I'm just going to trace around the domino here. And I'm going to look at the circle here. So instead of using my pencil, because it is off the ground, can you see the shadow here of the actual loop? So instead of me going around, which is going to give it fatter, what I'm going to do is put a line here and kind of a mark here. This goes down, and then I've got another circle here. So then what I'm going to do is hold this little piece and look at what circle that is. What size circle? That's kind of the outside there. And then it has an inner circle. And then the under one had a smaller circle. See the little tiny circle here? So what circle is that? It's kind of this one here. I always fix it. You know, we don't trace around them really great. And because these are dots, you can always find the dot size here on your circle template, which is this one, 11/64. And there's your dots. So you can see that's really easy. And to get this into your sketchbook that quick where you're ready to already paint is so much better than sitting here trying to draw this freehand, and although it is a pretty simple shape. But sometimes your dimensions and your proportions aren't off. So hand tracing, I totally recommend it so you can start painting right away. Number 4, it is about hand mixing tube colors. Now I love working out of a half pan. Sometimes I use a color over and over and over again where it is its own kind of color for me to use. And what I end up doing is taking the colors from the tube, mixing them together, and filling my own half pan. So you can see that I wrote HWC, and then I wrote yellow, gray, plus shell pink. Those are the colors that I'm going to mix for you today. So you can buy half pans all over Amazon. You can buy quarter pans, which are even littler, or you can even buy full pans. But I buy half pans, and I buy them by the hundreds because I use a lot of them. This is just palette paper, and it's left over because I was an acrylic painter for many years. So this is what I'm going to be using. If you don't have palette paper, you can use wax paper, you can use parchment paper, you can use tracing paper, you can just use your porcelain palette. I don't like the way that the palette knife goes on the porcelain palette, so I usually use palette paper. And you need to figure out like how much of each color you're going to want. And you don't need a lot, depending on how much you're filling in the tube. So this is the yellow gray that I'm going to use. And I want a pretty full pan. I use this color a lot. So this is Holbein. Holbein is HWC, and it's yellow gray. And then I've got shell pink. So when you're mixing, you want to mix the colors to where there are no lines or differences, right? You want them to become one color. So when you're doing that, you can use a plastic palette knife. I would not use your brush, because I just feel like a brush doesn't mash it good enough. A palette knife usually works better. If you don't have a palette knife, you can use like a little credit card, and that will work because it's got a smoother surface. So I'm going to pull this into and you can see that it's kind of marbleized already. It's pretty that way, but you want to make sure that you're mashing them together to create a new color. I'm spreading it out, you see that? Because I want to make sure there's no, you can see I've got a little bit of, see I've still got some pink lines in there, so I want to make sure that I get that mixed in. There we go. And I kind of smash the color down. And I keep spreading to look in there, is it all one color yet? And I need a little bit more pink, I think. Yes, that's the color. And this is a really fun way to create a custom palette for just yourself in the colors that you really like to use. You know, no one says you have to use handmade colors, right? You can make your own. A little more pink. There we go. You're the artist here. This is the color that you want. Okay, that's perfect. So now I bring my half pan closer. And now you just let this dry. The half pans, depending on where you live too, like if you're living with a lot of humidity, it will take a couple days to dry. I usually just let it dry overnight and it's fine here. I'm in the Midwest, so we don't have a lot of humidity until summertime. But you'll know because it starts to get hard on it, and it first happens is you'll get a film on it, and you can still though press through the film. That's when you know it's not set. It will be totally hard whenever it is set, just like your regular half pans. That was secret number 4. Top secret number 5, and the most important secret. Paint what you love. If everyone else is painting flowers and you don't like painting flowers, don't paint flowers. There is so much out there. I know I've shared the random journal with you, my 100 days of random things. This is things that I love, that I collect, that I have. Here's a tag. Here's the tag that I drew. It's right there. There's leaves that I pick from the yard. Make sure that they make you happy. Make sure that it's things that you love to look at, that you love to collect. There's nothing worse than spending your creative time or putting time into something that you're not enjoying. I can tell you that when I'm painting this, I am smiling the whole time. I'm having a great time because it's things that I connect with. If it is something that you are not liking, I want you to ask these questions. Is it the subject? Is it the medium? Am I in a bad mood? Because all of those have something to do with it. I truly believe that when you paint things that you are drawn to and love, it just makes it such a happier experience. I mean, look at that. How can you not smile when you're painting? He's just so darn cute. So take your time, figure out what it is that truly makes you happy, and paint those things. The world is our oyster. There is so many things for us to pick. Pick the thing that brings you delight and joy and happiness and makes you smile. For me, that is what creating is all about. bringing joy to myself, if even for the briefest of moments. I hope you were inspired by my 5 watercolor secrets that I've shared today. If so, please like or comment. I'd really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, please press the button. Thanks so much for watching.